We've all been in that situation before. You are attempting to do some kind of really cool thing, and you roll the dice, hoping that they will listen to you today, and on that dice you see it, a nat 20. You're going to succeed. And your DM goes, sorry, you don't quite make the jump. Well then why the fuck did you have me roll then?
Riser, double.
I take how much damage? So one of the biggest problems that you often see, or one of the biggest discussions that you often see in the Dungeons & Dragons community is definitely whether or not nat 20s and nat 1s should count toward skill checks. Skill checks are excessively different from combat. In combat, a nat 1 is an automatic doesn't hit, and a nat 20 is an automatic hits. And generally these come with additional effects. So if you roll a 1 on your attack roll, generally some adverse effect will happen. You'll either hit a fellow party member, or you will drop your weapon, or you'll end up prone, or whatever the case may be. It's usually up to the DM. With a crit 20, with a nat 20, generally speaking, the DM will have some sort of additional damage that is given to you. And you will guarantee a hit. Regardless, the enemy could have an armor class of fucking 1,000, and you will hit if you roll a 20. But when it comes to skill checks, this is a lot different. Because the vast majority of the time, whenever you are rolling skill checks, there's always some sort of barrier involved. So with things like critical successes and critical failures within combat, it's kind of easy to see how you can succeed on those things, because you might find a small weakness within a monster, or the monster might find a weakness within you. With critical successes and critical fails on saving throws, which is another conversation within itself, you can still kind of see where those two things might come into play, because if you are rolling a nat 20 on, say, a strength save, it might mean that your adrenaline got started pumping and you successfully overcame the enemy. However, when it comes to skill checks, there are certain barriers in place. I released a video last week about this week, at some point. I released a video recently on how something like persuasion is often reconstituted as mind control. Basically, people being like, oh my god, bro, I rolled a nat 20 on persuasion, so I should be able to convince the king to give me his crown and let me fuck his wife. And you understand why that's fucking stupid. And that's part of the reason why crit successes and crit fails in skill checks are kind of really fucking bad to run, because there's just certain limitations built in. Just because you roll a 20 on your athletics check, it doesn't mean you're leaping a 30-foot gap. That's just not a thing. You're not doing that, right? It's just one of those things where you can't roll a 20 and then hide in the middle of a wide open field in broad daylight as a rogue. So I think that a lot of times when people are trying to decide and decipher whether or not a nat 20 or a nat 1 should be an automatic success or fail on skill checks, they are not understanding the differences between combat and skill checks. The reason we roll in these situations is because you don't know what can happen. You might be able to find cover and avoid the eyes of all of the enemies. You might be able to jump a 5 to 10 foot gap with a running start and a very, very, very good skill in jumping. You might be able to convince the king to give you some money, but truth be told, you don't know if you're going to. The dice are there to augment the rules. If every single hit was a success, if every single saving throw was a success, if every single skill attempt was a success, then realistically speaking, you would have no fun within the game. But there's a big problem that I have with DMs that make you roll even when there's no chance at success. I talked about this in another video where I said keep the story going, where sometimes dungeon masters will have you roll for no reason. And it's very frustrating when you think about it, because like, why would you have someone roll if there's no chance of success? Why get their hopes up like that, right? Like, why have someone roll on a acrobatics check to climb the building if the building doesn't have any footholds? That just takes it away, right? So a nat 20 on a skill check should be a success, because in the event that they're rolling the highest they possibly can, if they can't succeed, why did you have them roll to begin with? But that doesn't mean that a nat 1 would have the inverse effect, where if you roll a 1, you automatically fail. Because sometimes the DC is like a 5, and if they roll a 1 and their skill bonus is like 7, then they obviously pass the DC of 5. Then again, if the DC is 5, I also don't know why you're having them roll. But anyway, the point is that if you're going to have your players roll, make sure there is a chance of success. If there's no chance of success, or even chance at moderate success, again, we go back to the convincing the king of blah, blah, blah. If there is no chance they're going to convince the king to do what they're wanting, or even convince the king to meet them halfway, then why have them roll persuasion on the king, right? And be open with your players about it, right? I really hate DMs that are way too fucking secretive. So like, if your player is like, I want to convince the king to give us the gem we've been looking for. If you're gonna be like, no, don't just be, no, you can't do that. Because that feels bad, right? That feels bad on the player side. Be like, no, because there is no way you're going to convince him as he is. You will have to build up more of a rapport with him, right? Give the players a reason for the rejection. Players are fine with not being able to do things most of the time, as long as there is an explanation attached. I will never tell my players no straight up without some sort of explanation as to why I'm not letting them do that thing. And that's all I have for you guys today. Sorry it was a little bit of a shorter video, but I hope you guys enjoyed it regardless. And as always, if you liked this video, then let me know what you thought down below. I appreciate you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one.